Well, good morning, good evening, and good night, my terrible listeners. You're tuned in to Terrible Sex with Naseem. I'm producer Dan, and each week I have the honor of bringing you registered nurse, aspiring sex educator, polyamory enthusiast, and true woman of the people, Naseem. She tells us stories, answers our questions, and helps us feel more comfortable around our world's infinite variety of sexuality. Send your questions, comments, and especially voice memos to Naseem. This show's best when you're involved. Contact info's on our website at terriblesexwithnaseem.com. Hi, Naseem.
Hi, Dan.
How's it going?
It's been a week.
Yeah.
It's been a wild couple days. My husband is in town again. I think the last time we recorded, he was on his way, but now he's here.
All
so
right.
that's been good. Spending some much needed quality time together.
Good to hear.
Yeah, so that is going well. I got a new phone too, so I was like very nervous that the Squadcast that we're recording on wasn't gonna be compatible for some reason, but it's working out fine.
Clearly not a problem yet.
Mm-hmm.
Well, good.
How are you?
Well, I scratched my eye. No, I scratched my eye a while ago and somehow re-injured that scratch. So now I'm just kind of miserable and in mild pain. And
I'm
it
sorry.
makes
Are you?
all of my sinuses do weird things too. So if I sound a little strange, I'm sorry to you.
Oh, you're quite all right. Are you taking any medicine for it?
Yes, I'm taking some erythromycin, the goopy kind. So I get to put weird gels in my eyes. I guess it's an ointment, not a gel. I didn't know there was a difference, but there is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There is.
And yeah, that's what I'm doing. Putting goop in my eyes and yeah. Being a
Well,
mess.
good for you.
Thanks.
Hopefully it won't be lasting for too much longer and you can see again.
Well, if it is, I'm just taking that eye out.
Okay. I hope you find a good surgeon for that.
Yeah, I'm more of a DIY guy.
Oh, well, you know what? That's kind of related to what we're going to talk about today.
Excellent.
Honestly, not being able to receive adequate health care and having to do things yourself in maybe not the safest way. Dan, as you know, we have a sex podcast.
We do.
And I think it would be irresponsible of us, especially myself as a healthcare personnel, to have this podcast and not talk about things that are going on in our country right now.
Yes.
Regarding Roe v. Wade and abortion legislation and the leak that occurred the other night. So that's what I want to talk about today.
Good.
I am going to do my best to not be enraged because I do have a lot of rage, and try to be as factual and forthcoming, and give the people some information. Things to consider, though, this leak, and if you're not aware of the leak, Politico had been given information that the Supreme Court was considering. There was a draft that Roe versus Wade, which is an abortion bill from the 70s, would be overturned.
Yes, and it was a draft opinion.
It was a draft opinion by Justice Alito, basically saying that the original case was unfounded and he, quote, didn't make sense and wasn't part of our national history. But there's a lot of things that are part of our national history that aren't great, like slavery. But anyway, so this is not law yet. This is just a draft. This is just an opinion at this time. However, this could go and become law by the end of the summer. And this all started, it seems, because of a Texas ban on 6-week termination that was taken to the Supreme Court earlier this year. And because of that sort of started the conversation of overturning Roe versus Wade.
Well,
And so
it's been
that's
tried many times in the past, and it's
absolutely
just another court or another case that went to the Supreme Court to test the law, right? And this is the first time that the law has been tested by the current set of judges on the Supreme Court.
correct. Judges who, by the way, when they were initially interviewed, said that Roe versus Wade was the law of the land and that it would be protected. And now here we are, where it is looking like it's not going to be. So that is a concern.
It is a concern. Again, not law yet.
Not law yet.
This has not been a published opinion by the Supreme Court.
As of this recording, this is May 4th, 2022. The leak was on the 2nd. It has not been voted on, or not voted on. It has not, well, I guess voted on, passed yet. So the future is unknown at this time. I just want to say that right off the bat. When this gets released, who knows what we'll find out. But as of right now, it's just a possibility, a very glaring possibility, and a very frightening one for a lot of people. So if this does take effect and Roe versus Wade does get overturned, what could that possibly mean? So there are 20 states in the United States that have trigger laws, which that means that if Roe versus Wade gets overturned, those 20 states automatically have anti-abortion bills, and that becomes their state law. And the thing to really think about here is it's not just about abortion. It seems like that when you're first looking at it, you're like, okay, this is about terminating an early pregnancy, and I can see why a lot of people would have issue with that. And there are a lot of justifiable reasons for why someone would say, you shouldn't terminate a pregnancy, terminate a life at such and such time within a pregnancy or at all. But it's not really about abortion, because Roe versus Wade is rooted also in privacy. It paved the way for rights to contraception. It paved the way for Miranda rights. It paved the way for cases like Loving versus Virginia, which is about interracial marriage. If we go down this path, it becomes a very slippery slope. So I am in an interracial marriage, and my marriage could be on the chopping block if, certain people in power and it's a small minority. That's the thing that we have to remember. This is a small group of people who want this.
Right.
The vast majority of Americans do not support the overturning of Roe versus Wade. So it's not just abortion. It can affect our ability to obtain Plan B, emergency contraceptive. It can also affect what we do in the privacy of our own bedrooms. So our own private sexual activity. Sodomy laws, which would affect the trans and gay community. Gender affirming care, which is already something that is
also sodomy laws would affect an awful lot of straight couples too.
Absolutely. And that goes into like the kink and BDSM community.
Right.
I mean, there's a whole swath of sexual activity that I don't think that the people who make these laws really consider, or they do consider it, and it's something that they don't want, even though it has no effect on them.
Oh, they consider it. They love that stuff.
Well, what do you mean? Why would they love that stuff?
They like to make laws to rile people up, not because they give a shit about what those laws are about. Listen, I'm going to get on a tirade. That's not what this is about. Continue, Naseem.
I'm all about the tirade, Stan. I really am. I'm
trying to tirade less in my life right now.
Fair enough. I just feel very strongly about this. I'm trying to have a level head, but it's really challenging because, I myself would never consider myself the type of person to get an abortion, but that doesn't mean that I should have the right to say that someone else shouldn't, because I don't know everybody's story. There is a reason why people do the things that they do, and whether I approve of it or not doesn't matter, right? So that's
Absolutely.
it's
And
incredibly frustrating.
it's a very personal choice.
It is a personal
And
choice.
another
And
very personal choice is whether you are in a position to even raise a child.
exactly. And I think that a lot of the thing that I think gets kind of swept over, or that people don't really think about, is they're like, "Oh, well, this person wasn't practicing safe sex," or "This person was being irresponsible some way or another." Even if that were true, even if we're not talking about cases of ectopic pregnancy or um, rape or incest, or even if we're not talking about that, even if we're just talking about a person who had sex, realizes they're pregnant, and they just don't want to have that responsibility. They're not ready. They don't want that baby. Pregnancy is not a punishment for having sex. I just want to put that out there.
Yes.
I think that is something that we forget. It's a possible outcome, and it's something that can be avoided, but sometimes it can't be. And just because we exhibit a particular type of behavior or have an experience, a sexual one, does not mean that now I am required to carry a child that I'm not prepared for, or don't want, or any number of reasons, just because I had sex. Like I that to me is the core of the issue, is my personal choices are being regulated by the very people who don't believe in federal regulation,
Right.
right? Um and that to me is just so frustrating. And there's lots of reasons why abortion is important. Abortion is healthcare. Like, end stop.
It is.
It's like, I have never had one, but I understand that there are reasons, medical reasons why it's necessary. There are medically necessary abortions to save the life of the mother. Like I was talking about ectopic pregnancies. That is, if you don't know what that is when an embryo develops not in the uterus, but in the fallopian tube itself.
Mhm.
It doesn't make it all the way down into the uterus.
And that's
And
relatively common.
it is relatively common. And those fetuses are incredibly dangerous to the person carrying that fetus, or that you excuse me. They're incredibly dangerous for the person carrying that embryo. It's not viable, first of all. There's no baby that's going to come out of an ectopic pregnancy. All it's going to do is hurt the person carrying it.
Right.
There's also plenty of instances where the fetus just isn't viable. There are plenty of people out there who would love to have their baby, but can't. They go to like their checkup, and oh shit, there's no heartbeat. So now they have to terminate this kid. Or you're going to make that person carry a stillborn baby up to term and go through all of that trauma. That is just, it is barbaric. Frankly. I know I said I wasn't going to get enraged, but I'm getting enraged, Dan.
Here we go. Here we go.
Here we go. And I have like all these notes that I wrote for this episode, and I'm so just incensed that I can't even see them right now. Like I said, pregnancy is not a punishment. Because yes, there are other options. if you don't want to get pregnant when you have sex. Like, there are contraceptions, but contraceptives, but again, if we are overturning Roe versus Wade, we are opening the door to legislation concerning contraceptives to begin with. And that's already happening. We see that all the
Right.
time in certain states where doctors or pharmacists are allowed to not provide birth control due to their religious freedom. So contraceptives, depending on where you are already difficult to get your hands on for many people. There's not a lot of access. And unfortunately, this will, and I'm not saying anything new to I'm not adding anything new to this conversation. But I do think it needs to be highlighted still. This ban will affect the most disenfranchised group in this country.
Absolutely.
The impoverished, Black and brown people, queer people, who are statistically the most affected by sexual violence. And so you have a lot of queer people, trans people who are victims of sexual assault, who end up pregnant and should have the right to terminate a child. Or a pregnancy, because it's not a child yet. Let's be clear about that too. And the impoverished and brown and Black communities have the highest rates of abortion because of those reasons, because they are the highest groups who experience sexual violence, because they are the highest groups that experience poverty and are disenfranchised. They can't afford to have these kids and aren't in positions. They may not have safe housing. They have food insecurity. There's lots of social determinants of health that individuals don't have access to, and it doesn't make it possible for them to adequately rear a healthy child.
Right.
Because let's be clear about another thing. Pro-life does not equal anti-choice. Like, they're two different things. Like, I support abortion rights, but I consider myself pro-life because if someone is really pro-life, they're going to support education programs. They're going to support
Yes.
after-school programs.
Yes.
Paid maternity and paternal leave.
Yes.
Free healthcare, food programs. They're not going to want to incarcerate every Black and brown person that exists in this
Yes.
country. Like, there are so many. We're not going to go to war as much as we want to, because that is pro-life. Pro-life is wanting to protect every life. Every life is sacred, but we don't.
And if you don't like abortions, then get the fuck on ban with contraceptives. Make sure every kid can get contraceptive. If you don't want abortions, great. Let's get people contraceptives all the time.
Or proper sex education.
Yes.
In our
Absolutely.
schools. People are so afraid of educating our youth about sex. And it's not even about sex. I'm not saying, oh yeah, every 6-year-old should know how to fuck. I'm saying every 6-year-old should know the proper names of their body parts.
Absolutely. So
that's the difference.
That is the difference. And I'm with you. So what do we do? What can we do now? What can we add to the conversation instead of just being pissed off at assholes that piss me off all the time anyway?
What can we do? I mean, we can vote people into office.
Vote.
That are going to support our goals. It's hard with the Supreme Court because they're not voted in. They are appointed officials.
They sure are.
Which seems like it seems so contrary to the values of our nation upon its establishment. Like, have an appointed person. But I'm not
appointed by elected officials.
Appointed by elected officials. I'm not here to argue the integrity of the United States government. Like, that's not what I'm here to do. I'm here to just point out just how shitty things are going right now.
But I'm going to talk about a couple good things then. because I'm
Please
with you.
do.
I'm with you.
Please do,
Let's
because
talk about.
I'm full of rage. I need you to come. That's why I have you here, so combat my anger.
Well, let's talk about what's going on in New York right now, because New York is offering telehealth for abortion care. So if you are living in a red state, you can still get an appointment in New York for telehealth. And if you need, and they can help you take the next steps if you need either access to abortions or um, pills that will help with that. And they can also help you get resources if those aren't going to work for you. But if you're in a red state, you're not stuck. And if you need help, then we're going to have a link on our website in the show notes of this episode that
Mm-hmm.
is good news for you. You're not stuck. You can get to the phone, you can get to the internet, and those fuckers can burn all the books they want to because we can all go online now. They've already lost that fucking war.
Right. And there's also PlannedParenthoodAction.org
Mm-hmm.
has a link where if you have the means, highly suggest that I did this morning. You can donate to their fund, their legal fund, to help combat this atrocity, if I may be so bold. Also, something to keep in mind, like I said earlier, this is going to affect impoverished people the most. Rural hospitals often don't have maternity wards. You know, you can go three,
Correct.
four, 3 or 4 counties without having a hospital, and that hospital may not even have a maternity ward to deliver your kid, which is why it's actually really unsafe to have a baby in the US. We rank 3rd in the world for maternal mortality
Oh, we're
after Mexico.
idiots.
We're idiots after Mexico and Costa Rica, and we're 1st in maternal mortality in the industrialized world. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me.
It makes sense if you don't really give a shit about each other.
Also true. But I recommend that if you have an Instagram account, check out Holler Health Justice. They can give some more information about um, how this is going to affect rural communities and what you can do to help those communities with this issue.
Good.
Because remember, this is not going to end abortions. This is going to end safe abortions,
Yes.
because people are now going to things like TikTok and they're like looking up herbal remedies and like looking up plants that they can use to and terminate a pregnancy, and that is so wildly unsafe. I'm not
It
saying that
didn't work with COVID. It's not going to work with abortion.
The people who were using My Body, My Choice to not wear masks are the same people who are going to support this ban.
Oh,
And
of
that
course they
just
were. It was all tongue in cheek when they were saying it the first time.
drives me fucking crazy, Dan.
It should.
But yeah, so I'm not saying that herbal medicine is bad at all, but you have to know what you're doing. You have to go to a master herbalist, not someone like me who knows literally nothing about herbal or Eastern medicine. So it's important that people realize, like, this is going to further hurt women and uterus havers who are going to need to um, seek out abortions for their own health, their own safety. Maybe they're in a relationship where they need to get out of, like, they could be in a domestic violence situation and a baby is just going to make it so much worse. They're going to get stuck in that situation. I mean, there's a million reasons why this is such a bad idea. And yes, there are states where it will remain mostly legal, because it's not an overarching federal ban. It's just they're talking about making a states issue. Like, it's definitely going to be banned in like Idaho, Wyoming, both the Dakotas, Missouri, Kentucky, Tennessee, Mississippi, Louisiana, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas, and Utah. But there are other states that are like considering it, like my home state, Michigan, is kind of on the fence. Now, Governor Whitmer said that she's the Michigan governor, has been talking about, pushing forth something to strike an old abortion ban off the record. because there was an abortion ban in place prior to Roe v. Wade.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's pushing to have that original law just taken off the books.
Good. I like her.
Yeah, I do too. A lot of people in my state don't, but you drive down in some of like the more rural roads in Michigan, and you'll see signs that say like "My governor is an idiot." And
yeah, there's ding dongs everywhere.
Yeah, it's annoying.
Right next to their Trump flags. Fucking morons.
There's that too. I did see something that was actually kind of funny. It was tongue in cheek, but I think there might be a little bit of truth to it. I think that somebody had said that women now have a choice. There's more women than ever who are identifying as pan and bisexual.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they were just not going to have sex with men anymore.
Well,
I mean,
it's not my favorite, but I get it. I get it completely.
I mean, I love men. And as a self-proclaimed like slut, I would still I'm like seriously considering, well,
I get it.
I won't.
I get it. It's probably smart.
There's only certain ways we can protect ourselves, and if this is the one thing that we can do, I'm not saying like pull a Lysistrata and put a restrict yourself to sex, but I mean, we have gone on strike for less.
Oh yeah.
So that's my 2 cents at this time.
That is at least $1.47. That was way more than 2 cents.
It's something that I've been thinking a lot about it. I had a different story for today, but I thought, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about this, especially in a timely fashion. Again, it's still an ongoing story. I'm not a reporter, but it is something that I felt a strong need to talk about today, especially because it's ongoing. We don't know what's going to happen. I wrote at the top of my notes, Dan, I hope this episode doesn't age well. Like, it is my best case scenario is that we find out that this was a complete fluke and nothing happens, nothing changes, and we're good, and we have the right to choose, and then we can listen to this podcast and be like, oh, weren't they so stupid? Like, that's my best case scenario.
Yeah, that would be wonderful.
Yeah. So, anything to add?
Let's hope this episode sucks and doesn't age well.
Yeah, that's my hope. I hope that this episode sucks.
Least downloaded episode 7.
Mm-hmm. But I have a feeling it might not.
Son of a bitch.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, get out there and vote every chance you get.
Vote every chance you
wisely.
Get. It's funny. Justice Alito was it Alito or Roberts? I forget. One of the justices had written that because there are more women of voting age and women vote more than men, we don't have to fear disenfranchisement.
Don't worry about all the white guys that are in power. Yeah. We can't disenfranchise you because there's more of you.
That's essentially what they said. They also said that abortion, which I thought this was hilarious in the most non-funny way. They said that abortion was actually a way to diminish the African American population, and that it was actually like a sterilization tool for a whole group, which I find, well, sterilization is the wrong word, but you know what I'm saying? Like,
yes,
it was like a tool for population control, which is the most fucking like bananas argument I've ever heard in my life. I can't, like, the balls of some people to say something like that. When it's like that community is the one that wants it and needs it the most. So, okay, I'm off my soapbox now. for the time being. I said I was done and I had put my 2 cents in, but apparently I wasn't. But we can move on to questions.
Yeah,
if
now
you'd
we're up
like.
to $1.56, I think.
Probably.
All right. Well, fuck. But I do have some questions for you.
Hopefully they're ones I know the answers to this week.
I think you do. Hey, Naseem.
Hey, what's up?
Does pre-ejaculate have sperm?
How many times do I have to answer this question on this podcast? Yes.
All right, moving on.
It sure does. It has sperm. It has it carries sexually transmitted diseases. Pre-ejaculate has a lot of the same stuff as regular semen. So if you don't want to pass anything, use a goddamn condom.
Now,
next question.
Listen, I
Yes.
want to point out that I feel like most of the questions came from people this week that didn't get comprehensive sexual education growing up.
Okay, that's fair. I retract
And
my
maybe
indignation.
these are all from red state folks that didn't get the education that we think they deserve.
That's true. I retract my initial indignation and apologize because you're right. This is a no judgment place for those asking questions, and I want you to ask questions.
Ask the questions.
And I will answer them as many times as I have to.
And I might laugh at you, but Naseem is a real professional.
Somehow somebody gave me a license somehow. So.
And remember, we're all here to appreciate the absurdity of sex and have a positive look at it. And some of these questions are sexual and absurd in nature.
And I'm okay with that.
As am I. All right. This one comes from a young lady, as she said in the question.
Okay.
She identified. Dear Naseem, if a guy comes in my butt, will it go in my stomach? I tried to not laugh.
Okay, no, I'm
question.
actually, so here's the thing. It is a good question. I'm going to say no, but it's a good question because it does indicate some understanding of human anatomy. Because the anus, rectum, they are attached via a very long GI pathway to the stomach. So I could see why someone would ask this question. However, it's a very long journey from the stomach to the rectum.
It sure is.
And I don't think that your guys' little swimmers are going to make it there. Especially because there's this thing called peristalsis, which is it's a smooth muscle in your GI tract which pushes everything down.
Yeah, it keeps it moving.
It keeps it moving down. So your body doesn't want things to go reverse. I mean, like when you throw up, when you vomit, we call that reverse peristalsis. It's not a happy time.
And it's a pretty short amount of distance.
And it's a short amount of distance from the stomach to the mouth, but it's a much longer distance from the stomach to the anus.
How long do you think that is? Because I just Googled it.
I don't know the exact number, but I want to say it's many, many feet.
Well, it's basically from the stomach to the small intestine, to the large intestine, to the rectum or the anus. Did I miss anything?
I mean, that covers most of it.
That covers most of it. There's some other minor organs that are like shooting stuff into there, but it's not passing through anything else, right?
Right. Yeah.
All right. So small intestine, give me a guess.
You know, I knew this because we learned this in nursing school.
Of course.
But it's so obscure that like it's not a fact I retained.
Not one you need in your day-to-day at work?
No, not really. Wait, you're saying the small intestine?
Just small intestine.
12 feet.
All right, and the large?
I'm gonna go with, because it does more absorption, so I'm gonna say it's longer and I don't know, 20 feet? I have no idea.
Ooh, man, you got stumped.
I did get
Small
stumped.
intestine, smaller in diameter, longer in length than the large
Ooh.
intestine.
Oh, man, my pathophys instructor is gonna get real mad at me if she
But
hears
you
this.
almost had them reversed. The small intestine, 22 feet. 22
Oh,
feet through the small intestine.
wow.
Large intestine, just a measly 5 feet.
You know,
So we're talking damn near 30 feet to get from
damn
the
near 30.
stomach to the rectum. So
I mean, I was right, many, many
many,
feet.
many feet. You are 100% right with that.
And yeah, and going against current, right?
Right.
And the force of your partner's ejaculation, sorry, friend, it's not gonna go there. Or congratulations, it's not gonna go there.
If you really want cum in your stomach, it's way easier to give a blowjob.
That's true.
Yeah.
It's a much shorter pathway.
All right. Well, I thought that was a pretty comprehensive answer, and we did some research.
We did. You more so than I did. I just relied on my pad memory.
Well, I mean, still had many, many feet. So,
Oh, good.
all right. Dear Naseem, I see girls that wear their pants rolled up over their ankles. Some have really nice skin, some even a bit veiny. I don't know why. That's hot. For women, I have a huge foot fetish. I always imagine them with no shoes. Then I accidentally turn myself on. Does anyone else have this problem?
Foot fetishes are very common.
Totally common.
Very common. There are whole communities online, where you can, like, on FetLife and things like that, where you can, like, look at pictures, where, you can talk about your foot fetish. There are, uh, online sex workers who that's their specialty, like, on OnlyFans, that will that's their whole jam is they just post pictures of their feet, um, and you can,
Twinkling
like,
them toes all over the
twinkling
internet.
them they get those pedicures and they look real nice. Um, I knew people when I was in nursing school who kept, like, talking about it. They're like, "That's how they're gonna pay for nursing school, to just sell feet pics." It was, like, a big joke. I don't know anyone who actually did it,
You don't know
but
anybody who actually told you they did
also true.
it.
Um, but no, it's a very common fetish, and kink. So, actually, I want to really quickly, since we're sort of tangentially on the topic, um, the difference between a kink and a fetish, for those who don't know.
Yeah, please.
A kink is something that, it's an interest, it turns you on, like, it's, impact play, or maybe you like a little bit of choking, or you like to role play or something along those lines. It's something that you don't have to have to be sexually fulfilled, but it enhances the experience for you.
Okay.
A fetish is something that you have to have in order to climax.
Really?
Yes, a fetish is something that, like, if you have a foot fetish, you're unable to have an orgasm unless there's, like, feet pics or, some sort of foot play involved. So that's, like, the main difference between a kink and a fetish, is a
Okay.
kink is just, like, spicy fun, a fetish is, like, necessary action.
Good to know. I had no idea.
Yeah, yeah, they're often used interchangeably, but there is a difference.
All right. So yeah. Listen, the only advice I have for this fella, I assume fella, um, don't be ogling toes when you're out in public. Enjoy them from a distance. Use your
Or the privacy,
peripherals.
and
Appreciate them when you're out and about, but don't be like slobbering on somebody's feet while they're just trying to have a nice day. Unless
especially because that person can't consent to your
exactly.
ogling, right? So, um, if that's something that you wanna do, there are communities online, there are websites you can, uh, pay to see that kind
And
of
there are ladies
content.
out there that like having their toes worshipped.
Absolutely, absolutely. There are plenty of you can make the connection for yourself, but with a consenting adult.
Indeed. So, no, you're not alone. Not at all. Not even close. Get out there, find yourself a good partner with some great toes.
Mhm.
Oh, I like this one. This was a cute one. Dear Naseem, what happens after sex? I'm planning on losing my virginity to this guy that I know and trust, but there's an issue. I suffer from anxiety and I feel like I have to be prepared for everything. So, what happens after sex? I know there will be cuddling and kissing, but what happens after that? Can you please share some of your experiences?
Oh, that's precious.
Isn't it?
I love this question. So, it's different for everybody, but I'm gonna tell you the number one thing is this if you're a person with a vagina who's writing in, actually for anybody, this is for anybody. The first thing you need to do after you have sex is to go to the bathroom. You've gotta pee first. That's the first thing you gotta do. Um, 1, 'cause you'll probably have to, and 2, you just had a foreign body around your genitals, either in or around your genitals. So it's really important, and if there's especially when there's fluid involved, um, you really want to, uh, get rid of any kind of bacteria or anything, like skin cells or anything that might be around, and kinda just, like, flush your system. It's a really good idea. Drink some water because 'cause you're gonna be dehydrated probably. Um, Cuddling, kissing, that's all really great. It's also really important, especially because it's your first time, talk about it. Talk to your partner about what was great, what wasn't so great, what would you do differently? "Oh, I really liked it when you did that," or, "Maybe I didn't like that so much," and you can talk through it. That will be good not just for your relationship with this person, but also for understanding, like, what do you want in the future and, what you don't want in the future. Sex is a fluid thing. It changes. Your desires and your interests do change over time. Um, and especially for the first time, because you don't really know what you're doing, it's you gotta kinda treat it like educational in some ways,
Totally.
um, both for you and your partner. Yeah, definitely, I recommend, like, listen to some music, drink some water, get a snack, talk it out,
Ooh, I
have a
like that
cuddle.
snack idea.
Oh my gosh, snacks are such an important part
And laugh.
of my
Get
of
some
my sexual
snacks
routine.
and make sure you laugh about something.
Have a good time. You
Yeah.
wanna make it as much of a positive experience as you can. If this is a person who you trust and you care about and who trusts and cares about you, you should have no issues talking about the experience, enjoying the time afterwards. The last thing you wanna do is just, like, rush on out of there, you know? Even if something, like, embarrassing happens, even especially if something embarrassing happens, that's when you
Yeah.
wanna talk about it the most. That's when you wanna, like, really dive in. Um, some people people will tell you that, like, "Oh, you will bleed the first time." That doesn't always happen for people, like, when you, like, quote, "break the hymen," which is kind of a misnomer to begin with, but that's neither here nor there. Um, some people some people do bleed after sex for the first time, some people don't. Um, so I would just say be prepared for any of that kind of possibility, but, um, just, enjoy your time together, enjoy the experience. I know I said in a previous episode that, like, virginity is, like, not a big deal, like, people blow it up to be a thing, but, like, if it's important to you, if you wanna make it a special thing, make it a special event, you know? Um, just, what happens after sex is different for everybody, but nourish yourself both, like, with snacks, water, um, but also, like, emotionally with the person that you're with.
And there's a refractory period. that dude might fall asleep. Those things happen.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. Good point. Because it is such an energy expensive task, you're probably gonna, like, pass out afterwards. It's unless you're, like, super fit, but even so, even if not, yeah, you'll probably especially the guys. The guys, in my experience, always fall asleep right after
Heck
sex.
yeah.
It's usually and for me, like, I'm always, like, wide awake and, like, wired. I'm like, "Okay, what are we doing now?" Um, but guys are generally like, "Okay, it's time to, sleep." So, be prepared for that. It is not don't take it as an offense. It's nothing against you. It
No,
is just, like, physiological thing. It's tiring. Sex is exhausting.
very much so. Don't take it personally. Get those snacks, and you might have to wait for a couple hours for after a nap before you have a little conversation about what happened. That might
Sure.
need to happen.
Sure.
Don't be
Absol
surprised.
Sure, absolutely. And if you're lucky, you'll both be in for a round 2.
Right.
Mhm. Or 3 or 4, if you're lucky.
Hey, Naseem. I'm a straight guy, but I just can't watch straight porn. I get turned off when I see other men naked, but I like watching she-male, female, lesbian porn. Why is it this way?
I mean, you like what you like. I'm a straight female, and I don't like straight porn. I'm actually most turned on by lesbian porn. Don't know why, it just is. Um, Also, we don't use the term she-male for the record. Um, so let's strike that from the vocabulary. Um, that's a very antiquated and, can be deemed as an offensive term.
Yeah, let's
So
stick with trans.
just let's just stick with trans. Uh, so why do you like the porn you like? I get it. I get not wanting to see you're a straight dude, you don't wanna see a naked guy. I get it. There's also a certain level of, like, novelty involved. You're a straight you're a cis het man, you know what your parts are, you know what you do. It's not really exciting to you to see a guy in the act. I can understand that. Um, so I can see where, like, the novelty of seeing other types of bodies in pornography would be more enticing. I get it. Um, I don't think it says anything about you as a person, but it may be interesting to explore that in terms of, um, maybe the type of people you may wanna have relations with in the future. Maybe it could tell you a little bit about what kind of play you wanna have in the bedroom. But I don't think it means anything significant about your identity or your sex life. Like I said, like I am not a lesbian, but I prefer lesbian porn, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that lesbian porn is like meant for women in a lot of cases. Um, and so if you find something that you feel like resonates with you and you're the target audience, then shit, go with
I
it.
think you're
Who
watching a
cares?
very different lesbian porn than I am, Naseem.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
But there's a wide variety of lesbian
There's
porn
a
out there for all kinds of people.
there's a wide variety of porn, just point blank. I mean, the internet is full of interesting free stuff out there. I've discovered all kinds of things that I didn't know existed in the past couple years. And uh, as long as it's reputable, and I know that's a weird thing to say when you're talking about porn, but um, you know, safe, consensual
Right.
people of adult age. Um, yeah, I mean, anything goes. Who cares? No one should care. And this kind of goes back to, in a weird way, kind of goes back to what I was talking about earlier about Roe v. Wade. Like, it doesn't matter what you do in the privacy of your bedroom. I mean, so long as, like I said, it's safe and consensual, like, those choices don't matter to the vast majority of people, so who gives a shit?
Absolutely. And on that note, that's all we got for questions, Naseem. I think you knocked
All
those out of the
right.
park. I think they were a lot of fun too. Those were good questions.
They were good questions, they were
Adorable
fun.
questions.
Oh my gosh, so adorable. I hope whoever you are that your first time it'll be awkward, it'll be weird, but I hope it's fun.
Me too. That sounds delightful. Well, what a great place to leave it. Naseem, thank you for all your fire, your passion, and your knowledge this week.
Thank you, Dan. Thanks for reeling me in when I needed to be.
I'm here for you when you need it.
Thanks. Until next time.
Naseem wants all her terrible listeners to know that although she is a medical professional, she is not your medical professional. This podcast is not medical advice. If you want medical advice, please seek out your very own healthcare provider. Terrible Sex with Naseem is part of the Terrible Podcast Network.